One of the greatest scientific missions of modern times has taken a giant leap forward today with the launch at lunchtime of the James Webb Space Telescope. A $10 billion project has taken 30 years to reach this moment.
The world first learned about 3I Atlas as a distant blur beyond Neptune, a faint interstellar traveler whose trajectory promised nothing more than a brief cosmic hello. But everything shifted the moment the James Webb Telescope caught a change no one expected because the object suddenly aimed itself toward Earth with perfect accuracy. In the quiet early hours at NASA's Goddard Space Flight Center, the alert came through the data feed. Webb's deep space sensors had recorded a subtle but undeniable shift in the object's movement. The numbers didn't lie. A deviation of less than 0.1 degrees in interstellar speed would mean a completely new trajectory. So what force could bend the path of the 3I Atlas interstellar traveler? The story of 3I Atlas deepens when scientists introduce it as an interstellar body similar to Oumuamua because it first moved through the solar system at high speed while staying cold and silent. Researchers expected it to pass quietly, yet global observatories soon compared measurements from Webb, Hubble, and Chilean telescopes, and the numbers began to show something unusual. The object started to slow in a steady pattern, and its surface shifted in brightness in a way that suggested changing reflection. These observations raised concern, since natural debris does not adjust its own light or maintain such controlled deceleration. NASA teams reviewed the early reports, while China's Purple Mountain Observatory produced matching results that pointed toward a purposeful change. Both groups reached the same unsettling conclusion, and the combined data showed the turn was intentional. This agreement forced scientists to question their assumptions, because nothing in known physics allows a drifting traveler from another star to alter its path in such a precise manner. The realization spread quickly through control rooms as the evidence grew stronger. If the movement was not caused by nature, the next question became impossible to ignore. What force could guide a visitor crossing the space between worlds? The first major shift in the investigation came when scientists studied the new infrared scans from the James Webb Telescope, because these images finally revealed details hidden beneath the frozen surface of 3I Atlas. The telescope captured a network of shapes that repeated with surprising accuracy, and the discovery immediately caught the attention of analysts who understood how unusual this pattern was for a natural object. The lines appeared smooth and clean, and each formation connected to another in a way that looked intentional rather than accidental. Researchers could not ignore the fact that random fractures do not organize themselves into consistent angles, and this pushed the team to reconsider what they thought they knew about the object. As the scans were enhanced through advanced imaging tools, the shapes grew even clearer, and the structures formed long paths that looped around the interior crust. Some lines created straight edges that held the same spacing from one point to the next, while others made perfect curves that never lost their balance. The deeper the researchers looked, the less the images resembled the rough composition of a comet, because the design inside the surface behaved like a frame supporting something larger. These details suggested a purposeful arrangement that could not be explained by simple cooling or ancient collisions. Each new image strengthened the suspicion that 3I Atlas was not formed by chance, since repeating geometry inside a solid body usually points to human design or machine construction. Scientists debated the meaning behind the consistency of the shapes, and many agreed that the layout resembled the early stages of an engineered system. Nothing in their previous work with asteroids or interstellar debris prepared them for a structure that seemed too ordered for nature. This forced the group to explore new theories about how an object could carry a pattern that looked almost architectural. While visual data continued to expand, researchers at SETI began to focus on the strange signals that came from the object because the pulses showed a rhythm that did not match normal radio noise. The pulses repeated at a steady rate, and computers confirmed that the timing fell into a pattern that looked deliberate. This discovery added a second layer of mystery, since a physical structure combined with a repeating signal often indicates intention rather than accident. Teams at SETI listened carefully for hours, waiting to identify a clue hidden inside the slow, deep tones. The analysis reached a new level when signal experts noticed that the gaps between the pulses lined up with prime numbers, and this detail changed the entire direction of the research. Prime numbers play a major role in communication attempts because they do not appear randomly in nature and require calculation to produce. This meant the pulses behaved like a basic form of coded information carried across space. If the structure inside the object implied design, then the pattern in the signal implied a communicator. The sudden combination of geometric symmetry and mathematical rhythm unsettled every researcher who studied the data because these elements suggested a message sent through two different channels. A natural comet does not build straight lines below its surface, and it does not broadcast radio intervals that follow a numerical sequence rooted in logic. These discoveries challenged everything scientists had assumed about the object, and the growing evidence pushed them toward the same uncomfortable idea. Patterns describe meaning, and meaning requires a source. The question at the center of the investigation now emerged with heavy weight. If the geometry under the ice is a language and the pulses echo a message, then who is speaking from the cold dark beyond the sun? The next breakthrough came when tracking stations examined new radar reports from China, because these measurements showed that 3I Atlas had begun to slow in a controlled way that challenged every known model of natural motion. The data revealed a 12% decrease in speed over only 2 weeks, and this discovery caused immediate concern since such a change required an active force rather than passive drift. Scientists at China's Purple Mountain Observatory confirmed the numbers twice, and the repeated results made it impossible to dismiss the slowdown as an error. This level of precision indicated something guiding the object rather than simple interaction with space. When NASA researchers reviewed the leaked documents that reached their desk, they noticed that the path of 3I Atlas did not match the wobbling motion of a normal comet because its trajectory looked smooth and balanced. Natural debris usually tumbles as it rotates through the solar wind, yet the new readings showed steady movement that resembled a spacecraft adjusting its direction. The idea felt too bold for some astronomers, but the clean pattern of the path could not be hidden in the statistics. Each new report strengthened the possibility that the object knew exactly where it wanted to go. This behavior forced NASA to hold an emergency session, and after hours of analysis, the agency confirmed the deceleration as a deliberate act that no natural object could reproduce. The confirmation spread quickly through scientific networks, and many experts began to accept the idea that the object responded to something in the environment. Independent astronomers in Europe supported this conclusion with their own measurements because they found the same controlled decrease at nearly identical intervals. The agreement among so many groups made the discovery more credible and removed doubts about interference or faulty equipment. As information continued to grow, the Pentagon quietly formed a classified unit known as Sigma-7 because the government needed a team dedicated to preparing for any scenario between contact and impact. The group included specialists from aerospace engineering, defense strategy, and deep space communication, and their task was to create a plan if the object reached a dangerous distance. Although officials did not release details to the public, internal documents confirmed the urgency behind the decision. This step revealed how seriously authorities viewed the unusual behavior of the visitor moving through the inner system. Meanwhile, astronomers outside official institutions worked day and night to calculate the projected path because they wanted to understand how the deceleration affected the long-term trajectory. Their models revealed that the new angle allowed 3I Atlas to align with Earth's orbit at a future point, and they published these results after confirming the math several times. The calculation did not mean an impact was certain, but it showed the possibility of a close approach that required global attention. The idea that an interstellar object could shift into a lane shared with Earth made researchers question the purpose behind the motion. Observatories around the world continued to collect precise measurements, and each new result pointed toward a pattern that looked too stable for chance. The object adjusted its velocity while maintaining a direct path, and the behavior resembled the controlled thrust of a vehicle rather than random drift. No known natural mechanism could explain a slowdown paired with such smooth alignment. The mystery deepened as scientists realized that the object might be responding to gravitational fields rather than falling passively through them. Every report brought a new layer of tension because the combination of deliberate deceleration and precise direction challenged all expectations about what an object from another star could do. The scientific community now faced a question that no one wanted to ask aloud. Was the visitor simply passing through the solar system, or was it deliberately preparing for a position relative to our planet? If the slowdown was intentional, then the meaning behind the movement became impossible to ignore. The chapter now ends with the uncertainty that drives the investigation forward. If 3I Atlas is not drifting toward us by accident, the real question becomes clear. Is it approaching Earth, or is it positioning itself for something we have not yet imagined? The mystery surrounding 3I Atlas grew deeper when historians joined the investigation because they noticed that the object's point of origin matched a direction described in several ancient Sumerian tablets. These tablets mentioned a bright sky stone connected to the Anunnaki myths, and the descriptions placed this radiant visitor in the same region of the heavens that modern astronomers traced for 3I Atlas. The possibility that an ancient culture recorded something similar to the current object created a ripple of curiosity across research teams. This connection encouraged experts to look at texts with new intensity, searching for clues that might have been ignored for centuries. When archaeologists examined the discoveries from the Gilgamesh excavation in Iraq, they found something even more unsettling because several architectural alignments pointed directly toward the same cosmic region from which 3I Atlas entered the solar system. These structures were positioned with remarkable accuracy, suggesting that the builders had observed a significant celestial event. Some stone carvings even depicted streaks of light descending from the sky, and researchers began to wonder if ancient observers had documented an earlier approach of an interstellar visitor. The match between the modern trajectory and the ancient alignments made the theory difficult to dismiss. As this information spread, the public reaction shifted from curiosity to fear, because many people believed the object might be an alien craft returning after thousands of years. Social media intensified the panic, and users across the world shared theories that ranged from hidden civilizations to forgotten gods. Videos predicting the end of human history gained millions of views, while popular forums flooded with arguments about the meaning of the ancient symbols. The speed of the online response showed how quickly a cosmic discovery could turn into a global wave of speculation. Religious communities also reacted strongly to the news because some leaders believed the approach of 3I Atlas matched passages in their own sacred writings. Public prayers were organized in cities across multiple continents, and many followers saw the event as a sign of a long-awaited return. Other groups warned that humanity should prepare for conflict, not communion, and their messages added new layers of tension to an already emotional situation. These reactions spread as fast as the digital rumors, creating a landscape filled with uncertainty. Amid this chaos, scientists continued monitoring the object and found another surprise, because the rhythmic pulses emitted from 3I Atlas matched frequencies inside Earth's magnetic field. This synchronization was too precise to be random, and the readings held steady for hours as the object moved through space. The pulses rose and fell at the exact intervals that our planet's magnetic lines produce naturally, as if the visitor was responding to the environment. This raised the possibility that the object recognized Earth in ways no natural body could. Researchers debated the meaning of this synchronization because they knew that matching the magnetic field required awareness of the planet's structure. Some argued the object was scanning the field to gather information, while others believed it was establishing a form of communication. The fact that the alignment remained stable across multiple observations strengthened the idea that the object acted with intention. This led scientists to consider theories that once seemed impossible to take seriously. As each piece of information combined with the last, the investigation moved beyond simple observation because the evidence pointed toward a visitor that behaved with purpose. The ancient records hinted at earlier encounters. The Gilgamesh alignment supported the possibility of historical memory, and the magnetic pulses suggested a connection deeper than passive movement. Researchers now questioned whether the object was returning along a path it had traveled before. If 3I Atlas could read our magnetic signature, then the next step of the mystery became even more troubling. The chapter closes with the question that rises from every new discovery. If this object recognizes our world with such confidence, the puzzle becomes unavoidable. If it knows our planet, has it been here before? The investigation entered a new phase when scientists noticed that the pulses from 3I Atlas began to shift, because the rhythm changed into sequences that matched several mathematical constants. The first constant to appear in the data was pi, and the pattern repeated with such clarity that analysts immediately recognized its purpose. Soon after, the signal adjusted again, and this time the value of EI appeared in the intervals, creating a progression that could not form by accident. The signal reached a final stage when the timing of the pulses matched the speed of light, which confirmed that the object was sending intentional information. As researchers compared these mathematical markers, they realized that the numbers formed a universal language that could be understood by any intelligent species. Mathematics does not rely on culture or translation, and the use of constants suggested that the sender wanted to establish common ground. The appearance of these values strengthened the idea that the object was attempting structured communication rather than producing random noise. Scientists now believe that the pulses were only the first step in a larger message waiting to unfold. The next breakthrough came when a new transmission appeared on the data stream, because this time the content included more than just timing. The signal carried a repeating shape that resembled a set of coordinates, and computers translated the sequence into a point within the asteroid belt. After that, a second pattern formed a double spiral that resembled a DNA helix, and the detail surprised researchers who did not expect a biological reference. The final pattern contained symbols that matched shapes found in ancient art from several early civilizations around the world. When the images were displayed together, the symbols aligned into a coded phrase that scientists decoded as "the seed returns to the soil," and this translation caused immediate debate across scientific networks. Some experts believed the phrase referred to life itself, while others suspected the message described a cycle connected to an earlier visit. The meaning remained unclear, yet the existence of a phrase proved that the sender understood language as well as mathematics. This pushed the investigation into a space filled with both curiosity and fear. Governments reacted quickly once the message reached the public because the appearance of symbols and coordinates suggested intention rather than curiosity. Defense agencies activated global monitoring systems, and several countries placed their nuclear grids on alert as a precaution. Military leaders argued that any unknown signal should be treated as a potential threat, especially when combined with deliberate maneuvers. These preparations revealed how seriously the world viewed the possibility of contact with an intelligent outsider. Meanwhile, scientists continued debating the nature of the message because the meaning of the phrase depended heavily on interpretation. Some researchers argued that the message signaled a warning, possibly referring to a threat buried in Earth's own past. Others believed the phrase might be an invitation, suggesting that the object had returned for something left behind long ago. Both interpretations carried weight, and neither could be dismissed without more information. The question grew more complicated when analysts noticed that the coordinates in the message pointed to a location that matched the trajectory predicted by astronomers in earlier chapters. This connection suggested the sender had complete awareness of its surroundings and intended to direct humanity toward a specific point. The discovery raised concern that a deeper layer of communication might exist in the signal, which forced researchers to prepare for further transmissions. The object now appeared to communicate through symbols, mathematics, and motion. Every clue added new tension to the investigation because the phrase created an emotional response that pure numbers could not produce. Mathematics provided structure, but language created meaning, and the combination made the message feel alive. Scientists, governments, and ordinary citizens began asking the same question as the evidence grew more complex. If the seed is returning to the soil, then the crucial mystery is what the seed truly represents. The chapter ends with a question that hangs over every new discovery. If a visitor from another system speaks in symbols and constants, the final meaning becomes the center of the story. What exactly is the seed, and why is it coming home? The investigation changed direction when the James Webb Telescope detected faint thermal movements inside 3I Atlas, because the readings revealed heat patterns that rose and fell with a rhythm similar to biological activity. Scientists watched the data with growing concern, since natural ice does not glow or pulse on its own. The shifting temperature formed pockets of light that flickered deep within the crust, and the effect created the appearance of something trying to activate beneath the frozen surface. This discovery pushed the research team to consider the possibility that the object contained internal mechanisms rather than solid rock. As the thermal images became clearer, Webb detected small waves of luminescence that spread through several chambers inside the object. The glow behaved like living tissue, and the light responded to changes in the external environment. Some analysts argued that the pattern looked like a network designed to react to outside signals, which suggested the structure was far more complex than an ordinary comet. The movement raised new questions about whether the interior was built to adapt to changing conditions. More evidence appeared when semi-transparent fragments separated from the surface, because these pieces drifted outward before arranging themselves in a repeating orbit around the main body. Each fragment moved smoothly into position, and the pieces created a lattice that resembled scaffolding. Engineers studying the footage noted that the orbiting pattern formed a protective shell, as if the object was adjusting its exterior. The fragments gave the impression of a system preparing itself rather than breaking apart. Researchers began to suspect that the structure was bioengineered because the fragments showed signs of flexibility and regeneration when scanned with deep spectrum imaging. The outer shell shifted slightly as the pieces settled into place, and the readings suggested that the material could repair itself. This behavior indicated a mixture of biological and mechanical traits, and the blend made the object seem almost alive. Scientists realized they were studying something that operated on principles unfamiliar to any known technology. The situation escalated when SETI transmitted a reply signal based on the earlier mathematical pulses, because moments after the message was sent, 3I Atlas produced a sequence of micro-movements. These movements did not match random drift, since every shift occurred immediately after SETI's transmission reached the object. The rotation of the body changed by a fraction that matched the timing of the response. This connection convinced researchers that the object had understood the signal and reacted with intention. As more signals were exchanged, the object adjusted its velocity again because it began matching Earth's orbital speed with remarkable precision. The alignment placed it beside our planet on a parallel path, and the distance remained constant for hours without any visible disturbance. This motion resembled pacing rather than approaching, and the steady synchronization made observers feel as if the object was watching the planet. The movement allowed the object to hold a vantage point ideal for observation. The global scientific community struggled to interpret the meaning of this new behavior because the object no longer acted like a visitor passing through space. Its reactions showed awareness, and its position suggested it had a goal connected to Earth. Each thermal pulse, drifting fragment, and controlled micro-movement added to the sense that the structure behaved according to its own logic. Scientists felt an increasing sense of unease as they realized the object was no longer simply responding. The chapter reaches its turning point as researchers confront the implications of the evidence. The object has stopped approaching and now holds formation with Earth. Its movements demonstrate calculation and patience. It is no longer traveling toward us, it is studying us. A turning point arrives when Webb records a continuous tone aligned with Earth's equator, because the steady signal creates a bridge that feels intentional. The tone grows stronger as 3I Atlas stabilizes beside our orbit, and the quiet formation suggests that the object is waiting for a human reply. For the first time in history, humanity senses that the universe is no longer a distant stage, since the observer has become the observed. The moment carries a weight that reaches every part of the planet, and people realize they are standing at the edge of a new chapter. Now the question moves beyond science and enters the space of meaning. If a visitor crossed the stars to deliver a message, what do you believe it wants from Earth? Share your thoughts below, because the next part of this story may depend on how we choose to answer.